Hey there, Gabriel Nicosia, author of Tilt, King of Orion, and last time I did chapter 4, and I believe it was Feather by New Jabez. And this time, Welcome to the Machine by Pink Floyd as chapter 5. Mel and Matteo slowed down until they fell behind the rest of the touring students. After the tour of the main lecture hall, Tiffany took the time to lead the teen to the school dining facility. The teens. With the number of people she paused to speak to, Matteo wondered if she was merely leading them from friend to pass her time playing babysitter. Gone was the swell of confidence he had received back at the central fountain when he thought his underage group might be getting away with something. He was back in the between state, certain he knew what was best for his future, while also certain the world would soon prove him wrong. "So, what do you think of Santa Carla U so far?" asked Mel. He mentally asked Esper to cut a third round through his music collection short. He devoted his full attention to Mel. "It's nice, but..." she pressed. "But I'm not sure I'd be going here because I want to. You know your parents didn't bribe you with the augment contingent on going here, right? You only need to apply. It's not like they're going to pull the spike out if you decide to go somewhere else. I still feel like I owe them something. You have no idea how much they love this school." They paused as Tiffany pointed out the entrance to one of the many parks on SCU's grounds. She told her ducklings how perfect the trails were for running during cooler afternoons, and explained a few of her favorite routes. Occasionally, she projected top-down images of each route into the augments for her audience. "As far as they are concerned, your obligation is fulfilled, right? So forget about them, for a second at least. Where do you want to go?" The future is a big place. Matteo imagined a long hallway lined with doors. Behind each was a different life path, a different school, and different friends. He wasn't so sure he wanted to leave the friends he had made at Santa Carla High. Mel and Dare were each so certain of what they wanted to do with their futures, or at least the near future. All he wanted was to find something that brought him satisfaction. He heard joining the military was an honorable and rewarding path for those who were unsure or had no higher aspirations. The source of that vice haunted him. Images surfaced in his memory. A cherry wood coffin, a flag folded into a right triangle, and the faded memories of an elder brother who left the nest before Matteo had even reached high school. "To be honest, I want to end up wherever you and Dare end up. You know we're most likely going to go to 2 different schools, right? Commuting is a thing," he joked. "So is choosing for yourself." They passed a cluster of college students headed towards their classes. Matteo's augment projected golden vines sprouting from their passing footprints, and he wondered how many people had installed tilt on their own spikes. The more he looked around the narrow street and adjoining courtyard, the more he noticed the signs. Sitting on a bench next to each other were a pair of tilters reading books. One had sparks of translucent energy zipping off of his fingertips every time he turned a page. The other tapped a toe to some unseen beat and caused ripples along the sidewalk. Tiny waves emanated from where her toe hit. Up ahead, he saw another few college kids swapping orbs of light with one another. He could only assume that was how the augmented reality aspects of Tilt illustrated exchanges of music. Matteo said, "Tell me about the songs you picked." "You mean the ones that I tried to melt your funk with? That was Dramaphone by Caravan Palace. Kara introduced me to them." "Why was that your red song? Like, all of my red options seemed so much angrier." "Maybe my version of angry is different than yours? It took me a long time to find a red song that pumped me up like Dramaphone. I think Tilt takes into account pretty broad flavors of emotion. Maybe rage is a better description of what I feel when I listen to Caravan Palace. Like, I couldn't believe my sister might have stumbled onto something good for once." "I heard that," said Kara from up ahead. "And I think it was motivating in a way." "What about your other 2 choices?" asked Matteo. Tchaikovsky's Troika and Debussy's Clair de Lune, both performed by my favorite pianist, Justin Munger. Who? Asked Matteo. Right, cut in Kara. The two sisters laughed and Matteo joined them, though he wasn't quite sure what was funny. Tiffany motioned for the trio to catch up. Up ahead, they could see the central fountain. Looks like the tour's just about done, said Mel. Anyway, what songs did you pick? For my yellow song, I picked Mr. Blue Skies by Electric Light Orchestra. ELO, corrected Mel. Love them. For my blue song, I picked Michael's favorite. For red, I didn't know most of the bands on there, so I settled for Time and Time Again by Chronic Future. Want to listen? However, by that point, the tour had reached the fountain. Kara, Matteo, Dare, Brittany, Johnny, and Mel said their goodbyes and thank yous to Tiffany before the walk back to Kara's van. Kara turned her techno tunes up as soon as the car was on. Brittany vetoed that decision from the shotgun position. 1 second, please, said Brittany in response to Kara's scowl. Thank you all for joining me on this little field trip of ours. Especially, thank you, Mel, for setting this up. I hope you all had fun, and sorry Tiffany ditzed out on us. At least we got to see the campus. She waited for Dare to catch up with the fact that he was the only one applauding, but realized it was intentional. She continued, Mr. Fleurs wanted to ask us a few questions about the campus when we get back to class, so I hope you took notes. I'm sure he'll be happy to hear how Pinhead Pins bailed on us, chuckled Johnny. At least her tour guide showed up on time, mumbled Matteo. His stomach grumbled as if to punctuate the thought. Kara reached for the volume of the car's studio, but Brittany batted her hand away again. Anyway, she said, hopefully this helps you each in your college decisions. She flourished her hands towards Kara in a you may now turn up your music if you so choose motion, and faced the front windshield. Kara dialed the volume up, but paused before it reached its normal skull-cracking noise level. She wheeled it back down and asked, Is anybody else stupid hungry right now? I could eat raw roadkill and ask for seconds, said Johnny. A chorus of agreement filled the van. All right, said Kara. I'll find us a Denny's or something. With that, she cranked the volume dial clockwise hard enough that Matteo thought it might come unscrewed and fall off. Upon reflection, he wondered if it might get screwed tighter to the point that she would be unable to turn it down. He cringed at that little nightmare as the beeps and boops bounced off of his inner ear. Matteo wondered why his breakfast hadn't held him over as long as he expected. He normally skipped lunch on days where he got up early enough to cook chorizo and eggs with his parents. Esper poked her tiny fairy face out of his seat's armrest cup holder and said, Perhaps your augment is not yet fully integrated, Master. Matteo, he corrected. Master Matteo, said the pixelated fairy with a sly smile. He realized just then how hungry he really was and how hangry he might be behaving. The left side of his head ached, and he gingerly rubbed a palm against the exposed metal of his spike. The nub of nanobots felt warmer than the skin around it. Your augment is powered primarily through body heat and electrical impulses within your nervous system. If it was recently installed, the nanobots that comprise the neural interface might not be adequately dispersed. It is recommended that you limit your tilt use until your metabolic rate, your metabolism, if you will, catches up with the new demands your augment puts upon it. How much battery life does a human being have? Wondered Matteo. He yawned. The average human body produces 10 to 100 millivolts on any given day, said Esper, but only a fraction of that occurs in your mind. Autocoherence of the heart's mechanism leads to an average 3.5 watts. The particular model augment you have supplements itself with heat energy and kinetic transference due to arterial action. Think of it like 1,000 tiny water wheels. For blood. Metal, no? She walked along his knuckles, wobbling back and forth with her arms outstretched, as if Matteo's hand was a balance beam. Matteo playfully flicked his hand, and she fluttered about like a housefly before settling down on his knee. He could almost swear he felt Esper's weight on that bit of his jeans. A psychosomatic impulse, I assure you, Matteo. I am not corporeal, just a program playing upon your visual nerves. I am barely even real within your own mind, just a projection. Matteo nodded in time to Caro's techno music. Esper, how much hype would this song cost, he thought. This is a classic infected mushroom song. 15 hype. You currently have 20 hype. You have 3 song slots available. Would you like to add this to your playlist? No, thank you. I was just curious. Wait, I thought there was no limit to the number of songs I could own. You are limited on the number of songs you can have in your playlist based on your current level. You will need to attune further to your augment and tilt before you can carry more than 6 songs at a time. There is no maximum to the number of songs you can own, but in order to visualize them effectively, I need to use more and more of your augment's internal storage. This limits the number of songs you can have active at any given moment. You can listen to any song you own, but the visualizer will not be able to use them in any of Tilt's AR features. Does that make sense? Sure, said Matteo. He realized that he had spoken out loud. Luckily, the music was loud enough that nobody else heard him. Kara drove the van to Milano Brothers Pizza and parked off-kilter in the space right next to the front door. The teenagers split a pair of large pizzas before she drove them back to school, and they went their separate ways. When Matteo got home that night, he went to bed 2 hours earlier than normal, smiling the whole way. "Good morning, Master Matteo," said Esper. "You seemed to dream well last night." Matteo grumbled into his pillow. "Just Matteo, please, or Matt." He rolled over and glanced at his alarm clock just in time to see the time change from 5:29 to 5:30. The clock let out a single high-pitched buzz before he slapped the off button. Esper hovered just over the red LED numbers. She had a miniature cup of coffee steaming in one hand and a newspaper that would require a microscope to read in the other. She paced back and forth next to the alarm clock as Matteo started throwing on clothes. "Perhaps we could compromise and I could call you Matster?" Fully dressed, Matteo groaned and dove face first back into the pillow. "Why are you such a pain?" "I am required by my programming to be servile. However, the way I behave is based upon you." He peeked out from the folds of the pillowcase. Esper was preening her translucent wings. "So in a way, I'm talking to myself?" "It's more like talking to an echo than just talking to yourself. But yes. However, unless you want other users to hear half of our conversation, I recommend you stick to your inner monologue, or inner dialogue if you prefer. Unless you would like to turn off my avatar?" "Isn't talking to an echo already talking to yourself?" thought Matteo. Hovering, Esper folded her legs to take on a sage look. Like a pint-sized mystic, she said, "No, young master. It is speaking to the mountain's voice." Downstairs, Matteo found his dad and mom preparing egg and tomato sandwiches. "Good morning, Matt," said his mom. "How was your trip yesterday?" "It was all right. Nothing too exciting." "Did they finish the new wing on the lecture halls?" He shrugged. "I don't remember seeing any construction, so probably?" His dad handed him a plate with a still steaming sandwich ready for eating. "So what do you think? Was it the kind of school you would like to attend?" His mom glanced from her coffee to his dad. His dad gazed at him with confidence despite a small quiver at the side of his mouth. Matteo could not ignore his parents' hopeful expressions. He surrendered. "I could definitely see myself going there. I still don't like the idea of staying in Santa Carla any more than I have to. I love you both, but I don't want to get stuck here. My friends are all talking about where they want to go out of state, or how they want to get out of town, and I feel like I'm going to lose them to distance." "It's tough to keep in touch, effectively," said Mom. "I know when your grandparents moved to Pira, it cost your father and I an arm and a leg to afford the visit to Illinois. They still make holiday trips, though, and I'm sure your friends will come back every now and then, too." His dad distracted him from a bite of his egg sandwich with a reassuring pat on the back. "But don't feel obligated to stay. We will visit you wherever you end up. Remember when we visited West Point? I think SCU is the best school for you, but we understand if you choose somewhere else." "Thank you," said Matteo. He remembered that trip to West Point. It was the last time he had seen his brother, and despite the pang of loss that managed to sneak in behind his happy memories, he smiled. His parents smiled at one another. "We are proud of you, son," said his dad. "Your brother would have been proud of you too," said his mom. She dabbed at the edge of her eye. A chill ran from the nape of Matteo's neck down to the base of his ribcage. He spotted Esper hovering just past his mother's face and decided that his sandwich deserved his full attention. The fairy glided onto his sandwich and stared up at him. She said, "You just had a massive influx of hype, master. You currently have 95 hype available for spending." Not now, thought Matteo. He lifted the sandwich a bit towards Esper's dangling legs. The fairy rolled back and jumped to her feet. She glared at Matteo, then smiled as if to say, "Missed me." He found himself chewing behind a grin. "Anyway, have a good day at school," said Mom. "See you when you get home tonight," said Dad. "We love you, son." And there we are. Thank you, and I hope you have a good day. Bye.